Okay, let's get started. Thank you for being here. This is an introduction to the Sonoma Corps program, specifically really just an introduction to what the program is, the structure, specifically how it's different than a lot of other internship programs that you might have heard of. And so we're going to go into all of that, and at the end, we will kind of dive into the next steps around, okay, if you want to take this a step further and you're interested in hosting interns from our Sonoma Corps program, here are the next steps that you're going to need to take. So my name is Brandon Jewell. I'm the Director of Student Experience at CTE Foundation. I was going to have everyone just pop your name and company in the chat if you could, so that we can just have that record and we can follow up with you if needed. But we do have a couple others here from CTE Foundation that I'd like to introduce. Andriana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andriana Duckworth, and I'm the Director of Development and Marketing for CTE Foundation.
And as of like yesterday, Leah Bayless, formerly with Keysight Technologies, is going to help us out with some things at CTE Foundation, but a large focus of that is going to be the Sonoma Corps program. So Leah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, nice to see you all. I'm Leah Bayless. As Brandon said, I've been at Keysight the last 6 years, and I'm now happily consulting for CTE Foundation. I really love the Sonoma Corps program and worked on it at Keysight, so I'm excited to share with you sort of that perspective today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. And once again, if you haven't yet, please put your name and company in the chat, and we'll move on. And then I see that we've got, some folks here who have had some experience with the Sonoma Corps program before. We will dive into what is a little bit changed since last year. So if you have that bit of knowledge about Sonoma Corps, it's great that you're here, but we'll dive in. This is really important still because we'll dive into some of the changes that we've made to this year. So for the agenda, we will do the program overview. We have a video that I'd like to show. I know that sometimes when we're streaming video, it may be a little choppy, so please forgive that, but it still should play pretty well. We'll go over a timeline. We'll go over some of the details of the program, such as like, what do the hours look like? What does the pay look like? What is the length of the internship, stuff like that. And then we'll dive into the wraparound supports that the Sonoma Corps program has for both the interns as well as the employer hosts. And then we'll get into the next steps. So I have a poll here that I'm going to put up. And all this is doing is asking, has your organization hosted internships before? And if so, is it something that you do only occasionally and you don't have an official program? Or do you by chance do it fairly often and you have a bit of a program structure built in? I think there is something. Okay. I think that should be everyone. Great. So looks like we've got one who's never done one who's done them occasionally, and which is great to see. Majority of the folks said, yes, we host interns fairly often and have an internship/apprenticeship program. So that's great. Oops, forgot to share. There's your sharing. Okay. We will move on here. So I'm going to play this video. Once again, I apologize if the video is a little choppy, so forgive that.
Hi, my name's Paloma Guerrero. I was really lost during high school. I had no clue what I wanted to do when I graduated. At the end of junior year, I heard a presentation about Sonoma Corps, and I'll always remember that presentation because my eyes like lit up. I was like, this is a perfect opportunity because it's a gap year. I knew for sure I didn't want to go to school right after graduating, and I knew I needed to work. Some trainings in class we did during Sonoma Corps would be practicing like building a professional resume, professional emails, soft skills that employers might be looking for. The employer visits made me feel sometimes a little nervous, and then towards the end, we got a few food ones, and that's where I was like, okay, this is something I kind of actually want to do, and got me really excited and motivated to finish. When I interviewed with Custos, they greeted me with a big smile. I remember that, and then they brought me into this exact room. I was really nervous during the interview. I knew I really wanted this job, and I got a phone call. He wanted to let me know, like, congratulations, we think you're a good fit for us. Just let us know if you accept our offer. And I told them yes right away. I worked with our maintenance supervisor, and he was our mentor for the time, showing us how to take apart equipment safely and how to clean them and then how to assemble everything back together. I got introduced to making pies and how to cook pies, how to make plates, how to fill the pies, make the fillings, and how to package pies at the way end. And then towards my end of my internship, it kind of just clicked to me like, okay, like you have to show up every single day. It's a teamwork matter. You need to show up with a positive attitude. During my internship, I realized that something I actually wanted to study was business and food safety. After I finished my internship with Custos, I got hired as a full-time employee and continued my education at the Santa Rosa Junior College. I think Sonoma Corps changed my life by giving me this great opportunity to work for an employer that will push me and support me throughout my education. I know my parents were really proud when I got this opportunity because they didn't want to see me give up on my career goals. So I know on my dad's point of view, he sacrificed a lot growing up by coming from Mexico and leaving his family here to give us a better opportunity. So just seeing that I made him proud and he was proud that I'm taking advantage of what I have and I'm not taking it for granted.
Oops. All right. So that, now I can't see everyone. Can everybody see the next slide?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I love that video because Paloma, she's just one of those like wonderful people who loved the program from the beginning, and really had her life change because she took the opportunity to go through it. And to this day, she's going to the junior college to study business and food safety, and she still works at Cousteau Bakery, and she's now leads a team. So, and that her internship began in 2020. So, and then she ended in 2021. Hers was a gap year, so hers was a full year. And as we'll discuss a little bit later, they don't all have to be full years. But we'll get into that in a second. So, but before we get into the structure, Leah, who already mentioned that she's hosted interns before for several years, actually at Keysight Technologies, and we just started contracting her, and I asked her if she could just speak for a few minutes about her experience because she's dealt with several interns at Keysight. So, Leah, I'm going to hand it over to you and just kind of have you give us your experience with the Sonoma Corps program.
Great, thank you. So the three individuals on this slide
No, the slide I just took away, I'm sorry.
that you just took down all were at Keysight for their Sonoma Corps experience, and we learned so much as an organization. So you know, my role at the time, I was working as an analyst in our basically our operations part of the business. And so if you know anything anything about Keysight, you know that, or maybe you don't, but it's a global corporation. We have our headquarters here in Santa Rosa. We have about 1,500 people at the Santa Rosa site, and a large percentage of those people are working on our manufacturing. A lot of our, there's a ton of remote employees also, but the people who are showing up every day we have a very extensive manufacturing operation at Keysight. And so that requires a continuous talent pipeline. And as some of the companies, I think, represented on the line, when you have a manufacturing operation and you want to be recruiting the best talent, it can get challenging. Well, a challenge that we had is that so many people will stay for such a long time at the company because it is a really wonderful place to work, but that means you don't have as many new people coming in to fill out that talent pipeline. And so then as an employer, you're looking down the line and thinking, well, what if these amazing employees we have, they're all going to retire at the same time, and who's behind them? So, and this is a problem that affects, a lot of companies. As we know, the cost of living here in Sonoma County is really high. It's really hard to find people who want to relocate here, especially in the last, since 2017, when our housing prices all skyrocketed and everything felt more crunched. So the model of Sonoma Corps encouraged the company and the hiring managers to really work with what we have here and connect more with our local students, and encourage sort of learning about careers that exist here in Sonoma County. A lot of young people, when you think about it, they're exposed. We don't talk that much about careers. It's not a general part of your high school curriculum. And so then from an employer side, sometimes, we'd be in roundtables and you sort of hear the feedback of like, well, they're not really prepared to work. Nobody's told them they have to show up on time every day. You can't just text me to say, hey, I'm not feeling well today. Like, there's a process for what you do when you can't, you need to communicate professionally. And those are generally not skills that are automatic. So how do you address the fact that employers want work-ready students and students want to be able to start a job? They want to be able to feel prepared to work after high school. And there's sort of this missing link. And that's where the Sonoma Corps program was so helpful, because what happened when we started working with the program and bringing students on tours of the facility is, my favorite thing that happened is students who had lived in Sonoma County their whole lives had never heard of Keysight. They'd never been to our facility. They had no idea what we did. And so they'd walk in and just go like, wow, like I didn't know this was here, and sort of you see their brains expanding at the idea that, oh, there are careers that I've never heard of, that I don't know anything about. And maybe I could learn something about that. And so the tour experience in itself, I think, is super valuable because you're connecting with students, you're showing them what you have to offer, and there's a two-way learning that happens. They will show you what they're interested in, and they will show you what they're not interested in, and then you can sort of, as an organization, we figured out, well, the things that are really interesting to the students are the hands-on, when they get to do something. Don't show them a PowerPoint about what this robot does, because that's actually less interesting than bringing them to the robot and saying, this is what it does, and here's how it's made, and giving them opportunities to engage. So as an organization, being involved with Sonoma Corps helped create more of a local talent pipeline. Now we have, there were, upwards, when we started the program was a little smaller. So we'd have, between 20, 40, 50 students a year coming through our facility and just seeing, hey, there are jobs here at Keysight. There are people who work here who look like me, and there are, things that look interesting that I could learn more about. So the experience as an employer was really, it helped sort of open up our idea about what high school students could do, because there was a big gap there where a lot of managers thought, oh, they're not going to be able to produce anything because they're so young. But the benefit of Sonoma Corps is that these students have been trained basically for a year of how to work, how to show up, how to ask questions, how to get support, because they have a mentor. Their supervisor has spoken with someone at Sonoma Corps and understands that they need a little bit more scaffolding than your standard entry-level employee, but they are so willing to give and grow. And it was a benefit on both sides. We learned about our organization, what was attractive to young people. We learned how creating a little bit more flexibility with our job descriptions helped, because a lot of the students want to take classes at the same time. And when you say, look, here are our general working hours, we need you to commit to 20 hours a week. If you want to work more, you can work more, but we want to know what's your regular schedule going to be. And that allows them the independence to decide and prioritize How much of their time are they going to spend at work? How much are they going to spend at the JC? And it was a growth experience all around. I want to stop there because I don't want to take too much of the time, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has for me about the experience.
I'm wondering, this is Pivy Lane, I'm from North Bay Children's Center. I'm wondering how many students have you or interns have you usually had at any one time at your site? Obviously, your company is very large, but how many do you usually have?
That's a great question because Brandon and I talked about that yesterday. We had more than one at a time. So the first year we had 3. I think we had 2 the second year. And I think we've sustained at least, I know we've sustained at least 2. We might be back up to 3. And again, this started in 2020. So we all know what happened in 2020.
Yes.
There was some fits and starts. But what was great in having more than one at a time is that, you all know about your organization. You know what the culture is like, what you expect of people. But, a student coming right out of high school, they are a blank slate. They don't know what the expectations are at your workplace, how that compares to others. And so having a little bit of a cohort where they had someone else who was also brand new, we encourage them on day one, please make sure you're communicating with each other. If you have a question, your colleague probably has the same question. So talk to each other, figure out what we need to do to support you. And so so to answer the simple answer is yes, we had, 3 and 2 a year. But the benefit of having that is that they work off of each other and it sort of can help them to both grow into their roles.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
And one of the, to just jump in if you don't mind, Keysight had 3 different roles, right, that you were hiring for. And those were kind of specific to departments, but they were still a cohort. Another way of doing an internship is to have it be on a kind of a rotational basis. So I would say about half of the employers we work with, their internship job description is not one department, it's many. So the intern will go through their time, they will visit, say, 4 or 5 or so departments, depending how long they're there. And if they're there long enough, say like 6 months or a year, then that's a good opportunity for, halfway through, you can check in with the intern and say, hey, what stood out to you? What is most interesting to you? And then maybe tailor the rest of the job, the internship toward that interest. That is something, so it's like half and half. Some are very kind of department specific and job specific, and some are just rotational.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could, when we had a student in a rotation, because when we started, we thought, okay, everyone's going to spend, they were 12 months when initial year that we started. And so we thought, well, they'll spend 6 months doing this and then they'll rotate 6 months doing that. But because the structure of the program encourages a real personalization, and it's not more work on the employer. I just want to clarify. It's sort of like looking at this student and acknowledging the place they are in their life, which is that this is an exploratory year. They need to learn about what their own interests are in the workplace, and being able to provide that. It really gave a lot of our supervisors more pride in their own work because they could explain things that they liked about the job and talk about their own experiences of moving throughout the company. And we were able to connect one of the students who was on that first slide. He started out as a sort of engineering support, and then we learned that he really loved coding, and he was able to actually support software development that was taking place at the same time. And it was unheard of in the organization that somebody without a college degree would be able to actually work on software. And so this student taught us that, hey, kids learn a lot of things in a lot of different ways these days. And you thought I was going to come in and help you with a very technical piece that was hands-on. And then he was able to really demonstrate skills that we were able to support. And he was a huge help at a time when we really needed it. So I think it really helped to have sort of the whole organization had a little bit of like awakening of, oh, maybe young people are more capable than we thought they were beforehand. So it was really helped and changed a little bit hiring mindset. And it's made it easier because we have more name recognition with local students to know, oh, yeah, I've heard of you. Yeah, I've been there. So that was a
And
really
Tom now,
great side.
Tom still works there, right?
Yeah, he went on to UC Merced, studied engineering, and kept his role at Keysight. He was able to keep working sort of on a part-time basis while he was in school, which I imagine was a huge benefit to him because he could conceivably graduate school and be employed, which is hard, as you all know.
So I will, in the future slides here, I will get into the nuts and bolts of the program. But before we move on, is there any other questions, like experiential kind of questions for Leah? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Leah, for sharing. We appreciate that. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what makes Sonoma Corps different than a lot of the other internships you may have heard of, or other ones that maybe you have a certain structure at your organization, and this is kind of what makes Sonoma Corps unique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into the structure. I'm going to talk about like sort of the flexibility and how we, or first, I guess I should say how we are helping the youth explore and prepare for careers during kind of this phase 1 of Sonoma Corps. And then when we go into phase 2, which is the internship side, we'll talk about what that structure looks like and that flexibility, and as well as some of those supports that are offered. So here is just at a real broad glance, here's what the structure looks like. When I mentioned that there's 2 phases of this program, phase 1 is during a high school student's senior year, they are taking a class, and it is basically a career readiness and career exploration class. And that's what Leah was mentioning, that provides them with, I would say, more career-focused education than a lot of other students, a lot of other high school students would get. This is specifically tailored to not only help them get ready to enter a career after high school, and but also to help them explore what is out there, particularly with those that are offering internships in that phase 2. So during that year, they will explore a lot of those opportunities, and they'll kind of do an assessment on what fits my interests and my skill set. So when we break it down, here are the sort of details. The class itself doesn't start until January 2024. So it's a 1 semester class. It goes from January to June. During that time, we will be working with the students to build resumes. They'll build a LinkedIn. We'll do some mock interviews. We touched on all those important skills. You heard in the video, Paloma mentioning like email writing, just showing up on time, some of those basic skill sets that we really try to hone in on. But they also get additional sort of mentorship and support. The teacher at the schools that teach this Sonoma Corps course, they know that their role is not just as a teacher, but a little bit more of a mentor. During that senior year, during that class, in between all of the career readiness workshops, we are taking the students out of the classroom, hopping on a bus, and we are taking tours. As you mentioned, Shauna, we've taken a couple of tours at Blendtec in the past as an example. And Norm, we've also done tours at Amy's. So we will take those students and we'll go on tours so they can actually see the building, see the facility, see the cool machines. As Lee mentioned, that was where a lot of students were like, whoa, I had no idea this was here. It was that wow moment. But we can't visit every employer. So with the other employers, we will work on getting into the classroom and doing some sort of presentation or project with the students. That either way, those students are getting a full understanding of what it's like to work in your organization and industry. During that senior year, near the end of the school year, around April or May, is where students are going to start to figure out what job descriptions that you've submitted are really speaking to them and what they want to apply for. And those, the applications and interview will happen around April, May. So that they will graduate high school, and somewhere during the summer, June-ish, July, as late as August, and I'll get into it kind of what that start and end time looks like a little bit later. But so that April-May interview time can lead to additional interviews if you'd like, a second or a third interview with your company. And that we know can take a while. So you have some leeway, some time, so that come June, July, August, you can hire that intern. It's important to note that most of our interns that come out do enroll at the junior college. We push them to enroll at the work experience department at the junior college. That I'll get into again a little bit later, some of those supports, but that provides them some extra support and mentoring from that staff, as well as some, of course, college credit. But what we found is a majority of our students take other classes as well. So, and that'll kind of play into that flexibility that Leah mentioned. Is if you are looking for a full-time person, that is totally fine. That will fit some of the students' needs. If you are flexible on whether or not you can do part-time or full-time, chances are you'll have more students interested in your position because of that flexibility. During that time, they will also receive mentorship from the SRJC staff. We also work with JobLink and 10,000 Degrees, who also offer career coaching and mentorship. So they kind of get this full wraparound support. And then, of course, our hope is that you're mentoring them too. So they have a direct supervisor that they can go to, and that person is also a bit of a mentor. So here's sort of the details of once they're in, what that looks like. As I mentioned, the hours are flexible. So it can be part-time, it can be full-time. We would ask that you pay benefits just based on whatever your company policy is for those amount of hours. So that you don't really so that the intern themselves don't feel like they aren't receiving any benefits because they're under an internship title instead of any other employee. We ask that employers pay around 18 to 20 per hour. And the reason we choose that range, well, first of all, as we know, it's like minimum wage in Santa Rosa anyway, is like 17 something. And next year it goes up to like, I don't know, it's even more. It's it's like at the high end of 17. So 18 as the minimum is not too bad. But the reason that we try to pull everybody into this $18 to $20 range is because we are hoping that students will make a decision based on their interests, not make a decision on which internship they apply for because one is paying a few bucks more per hour. So whether or not we have some employers who might want to pay a little bit more, and we're trying to actually pull them in. They are also, it's important to mention, they are an employee of your organization. So they're on your books. Now, here's some of the big change that we have this year versus previous years, like, Blendtec and Amy's last year when we were working together on things. It was a year-long internship. We have heard feedback from both the employer side of things as well as the interns that flexibility would be really nice here. So we have basically said you can hire someone for kind of a maybe like a summer internship, maybe 3 months. You can do something in between, or you can go all the way up to that year-long internship. It is completely based on what you as an organization would like to do. With that added flexibility, I was talking to one company who said, well, we usually take on 2 12 months interns. Maybe now we'll take on 3 or 4 3 to 6 months interns. And that way we can get more folks in and then really kind of hone in on who we think is a really good fit for the company and offer a job afterward to those, say, 2. So that's an option as well. At the request of one of our employer partners who said, we need you to put it in black and white. Tell us the start date and end date of everything. So I want to put out there that we are completely flexible. These are not set in stone, but here are just some examples of when, say, an early start date is, a regular start date, a late start date, and then depending on how long you decide you want that intern for, when that internship would end on this grid here. So we say an early start date should be somewhere around mid-June. That means that you would have to kind of have offered the position before they even graduate high school, and are kind of ready to take them in, because they graduate, their last day of school is June 7th. So maybe somewhere mid-June, June 15th or so is a good date to have a start date. The kind of perfect midsummer is July 1st as a start date. But we do have companies who have a longer, time where they've got to get everything approved and they've got to have multiple mandatory interviews. So as a later start date, it could be, say, aim for August 1st or something, even though we've got 1 or 2 employers who generally sometimes are even after. But it's important to know that the supports that you get from, say, the junior college, if they are going through the work experience department there, that is based on their school year. So if you have someone as a late start date and they're there until, so say you hire somebody for a year-long internship and they're there until July 31st, the support from the junior college actually ends in June still, that mentorship piece, because that's when the school year ends. I know I just downloaded a bunch of information and I've got more, but do I have any questions from anybody at this time? Great. So I want to dive into what those wraparound supports look like. So we partner with the junior college, 10,000 Degrees, and the Workforce Investment Board, which also JobLink is a part of. And so I kind of mentioned what the junior college does. Assuming that they are in the work experience department, they are working with a coach there, setting learning goals. That coach will meet with the direct supervisor and the intern twice per semester. So if you have them for 6 months, you're going to meet with that coach twice. If it's a year, 4 times. And then what the intern, while going through this course, will also have a few other assignments, but they're all pretty easy and not very many hours, and they're all based on that personal growth, that personal and professional growth. We work with 10,000 Degrees on scholarships. So we do fund scholarships. We give that money to 10,000 Degrees, but 10,000 Degrees as a scholarship providing organization has a whole system in place. So we work to make sure that the interns are applying through 10,000 Degrees for scholarships. They are equity focused, and so they are based on family income. But if approved, they can get up to $1,000 per year for up to 6 years. And then we also work, and then I should say too, 10,000 Degrees also has coaching support, not only at the schools that we're at. So they will have a 10,000 Degrees representative there on site, but also once they go to the junior college, 10,000 Degrees has people there too that can be coaches and go-to folks. And then when we work with Workforce Investment Board and JobLink, that is to provide even more supports for the intern around kind of that skills building and mentorship piece. They have coaches that will stick with somebody for as long as they need. They also have additional financial aid resources. But JobLink also can work with the employer. There are programs in place that can help offset costs for some things that an employer might need, specifically around, like, say, new hires and stuff like that. So that is there for you as an employer as well. Any questions there? So I feel like Leah touched on a lot of this, but so I'm going to go through this fairly quick. But I do want to just touch on some of the benefits of being an internship host. As Leah mentioned, you have access to this emerging talent, this incoming talent, and that is a great way to keep them here, because what we're seeing, what the data shows, is so many of them once they graduate high school, are leaving. Cost of living here is really high. And if they have a hard time finding a position that looks like it can be promising, a career path where they can actually afford to live here, they might move away. And we all know how hard it is to bring in outside talent into Sonoma County. So this is a great grow our own strategy to do something like this. Also, something to consider is when we're talking about your organization having that direct supervisor / mentor to the intern or interns, that is a great role for somebody who you might be considering as incoming leadership in the company. This is a great way to assess how they do in a leadership position overseeing someone. This is a great way to diversify your incoming workforce. I was looking at stats the other day. A majority of the students are students of color. They're people of color. It's either 46 or 48% are Hispanic or Latinx. And so when, you know, a lot of these companies are recognizing, they're looking at what they have in the company and saying, we are lacking the diversity that exists out in our community. This is a great way to bring in not only young, but diverse new talent. And then Leah also mentioned this a little bit, but this is a great way to build visibility around your company. Students don't know that you exist in the community, and this is a great way to let them know that you do. And then it also builds your reputation, not only within the youth, but within the community as a whole, because CTE Foundation does a lot of marketing around this, and your organization can too, and we can partner on that to really put it out there and say, hey, look how CTE Foundation and these companies are working together to foster the incoming youth workforce. So the next steps, if you decide you want to take the next step forward and you want to hire some interns, think now that when we talk about hiring interns, we're talking summer 2024. So we have time, but we do have some work that we would have to start on fairly soon. So if you are interested, first thing to do is just let me know. We have this non-binding MOU. It's really just to sort of secure commitment that you're willing to host an internship. You can pull out at any time, but it does say in there, just let us know, just give us some notice. Some of the worst case scenarios are when an employer says, we're gonna do this, and then they pull out without letting anybody know. And then so students are kind of left going, well, what about the company that I wanted to apply for? So the MOU is there just to hopefully kind of be a little bit more of saying, yes, we are in. Then once that happens, starting in January, between January and April, we will work with you on connecting with the students in some way, whether that's the in-class presentation or project, or say a tour at your facility. We will expect job descriptions from you by, say, like mid-February. Now, like Amy's and Blendtec, we've got your job descriptions, so we could reuse those unless you have some changes you want to make. And so we'll work with you on that. But it is around that February and March time, well, I should say February to April, where students are really diving into all those different job descriptions and deciding which ones they want to apply. And then comes the interview and hire process, which I mentioned earlier. The interview process will happen around April or May 2024. And then you can kind of go through your regular hiring process after that. The way it works is that CTE Foundation will sort of kind of have this big, real quick get to know you type interview that's about 15 minutes long. And we have a lot of employer partners in the room. We usually do it at a school or at a single site. And then students will sign up for interview slots. And so that's it's not like a full interview, but it's a great way for your organization to get to meet the kids. And then it's up to you say you interview 4 students, then you can say, okay, we've decided we want to call these 2 or 3 back for a second interview. And that's on the company, that's on you guys to reach out to them and schedule them to come into your organization to do that second and or third interview or whatever you need. And so giving yourself some of that time, and then of course, June, July, August is when you can officially hire them. So that's where we're at. That is a full summary of what the whole structure is, as well as some of the changes from those who know it from previous years. So I'd love to entertain any questions or comments from anybody.
Well, I really enjoyed the flexibility. I love the idea that there's different options, because we at North Bay Children's Center, we have had quite a long experience with students and interns in a smaller setting. And then more recently, we started an apprentice program just in Novato County, and we are starting also an apprentice program in Sonoma with Santa Rosa Junior College. So for us, we are very, very interested, and this could be sort of a link in between these two programs. And we have 14 centers at two counties. Obviously, this would be for our sites in Sonoma, in Petaluma, Santa Rosa, and Healdsburg. And we are kind of in final stages of building our administration site in Novato. So at that particular site, we are thinking about it as an demonstration site where everybody would kind of get that initial onboarding, and we really invest a lot in kind of growth opportunities. So for us, the flexibility and potential of growing young people and growing leaders at the same time through our mentoring process would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And we are happy to, if you've got this sort of structure in place already, like, we're happy to kind of work with you on that. That's what the wonderful thing about flexibility is, that we're not saying our way or the highway.
But I keep on going to the flexibility. That's kind of music to my ears. It's great to hear. And we have also you mentioned about the mentoring option. We have sort of for example, apprentice leaders who work directly with our apprentices. So we certainly could build something similar into the internship.
Wonderful.
I wanted to validate your proof of concept there, because there was an apprenticeship program at Keysite that was actually my baby. I built that program when we started bringing in Sonoma Corps interns. Some of them were interested in continuing in the apprenticeship program. And so we did have one who started as a Sonoma Corps intern, and during the course of his internship, he converted into an apprentice, and is still there, is continuing to learn and grow. So that's a wonderful opportunity to, as you said, raise up your own talent, because they're loyal, they're interested, and
great.
Any other questions or comments before we kind of wrap up? Okay. So one last thing I just want to mention, with having in mind that CT Foundation wants to really support the employer partners in any and every way we can. The CT Foundation website is chocked full of a whole bunch of previous kind of things like this. Like, we've got other introduction to Sonoma Corps things, other employer meetups where we talk about some stuff more specifically around hosting an internship. And all that is available there, as well as some like mock or template job descriptions for internships, stuff like that, the timeline. So I would recommend at any point, go to CT Foundation, ctsonomacounty.org/Sonoma Corps, and you can find all of that. On top of that, we are building this sort of live document that we're calling the Sonoma Corps Employer Handbook. That is several pages of very detailed information about this program. So what we did today was we went over a lot of the summary of everything. If you wanted to dive into the detail, it's there. And as I said, it's a live document, so it's one of those things that we might continue to add and adjust when we get more feedback from employers, or if anything, if we just think that there's some new tools and resources to add to it, we will.
Great.
Cool. All right. That is it. I want to thank everyone so much for being here. If you decide you want to take that next step and you say, yeah, let's get involved in this and host some internships, please just reach out to me. You all should have my email, but I am going to put it in the chat just in case. There I am. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Look forward to
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful day.
You
hearing.
too.
Thank you.